Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic: Discover the Wild Side of China. Presented by NatHab Expedition Leader Brad Josephs. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Thank you for being here with us today. Over to you, Brad.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to say thank you guys. Anybody that's tuning in here means that they are truly intrepid travelers that are going to go to China with us. And I believe that I am more proud of our China program than any other program that I've been associated with. Um, I've guided for NatHab since 2004, and I've done the Kodiak Katmai Grizzlies. I've done Borneo and Northern Lights. And this is China, which I started in 2008, and I think that there's so much to be proud of. This is a chance where we can put our geopolitical concerns aside and go visit a beautiful place in the world, one of the most beautiful places, arguably, and be good ambassadors as Americans and Canadians and whoever else is on the trip, and we can just enjoy each other. So thank you guys for signing up for this trip, and I know that the number one thing is, oh, is that safe to go to China? And I will tell you one thing, yes, it is. Um, we've had fantastic trips, and we will continue to have fantastic trips. So I'm going to go ahead and get this started. I love this trip. Like I said, I started it in 2008, and it's just absolutely fantastic. I mean, some of the best scenery in the world, giant pandas, which everybody loves, and also something that people don't realize is, well, first of all, the culture is incredible, and there's some amazing other wildlife that we will see. So, and I think that I'm going to do a shout out to our local team first of all, because China is an extremely complicated place. It's mind-bogglingly complicated, and our team is incredibly intelligent. So they're able to fix everything and make it, and they know exactly what we want for in a trip. In my opinion, by far, they are the best local partners we've ever had. And here's Karen, the brains behind the operation. And here's Philip, who's kind of like a Chinese version of, he's Tibetan version of me, who just has the passion and sees, all the incredible things and loves to share it with people. And then Bella, he was our other expedition leader, who you guys will either have Bella or Philip, I think, at this point. And yeah, Bella's just a jewel. I watched her go from medium English to expert English, expert um, skills in dealing with people, expert bird and mammal knowledge. So she's fantastic. So I love Bella like a little sister. And this is us and the team. And a special shout out to my boss Sandy at the lower left, who has helped, obviously, been allowed us to, pull off these trips, and they're intrepid trips. We go off the map on this trip. We don't just follow an itinerary that other travel companies follow. We have handcrafted this itinerary. We've braved it, and I think it's something that we're all incredibly proud of. And it all started in the old days, maybe in the 2007, 2008, 2009, trying to figure out how do we get our travelers safely into the remote wilderness of China, safely enough to where at least we can see some wildlife, some cool wildlife, and get exposed in giant panda habitat. And we faced all kinds of challenges, but we persevere. I always have to say that this is one of my things that I'm most proud of is when I was in China scouting out the current itinerary, probably in 2013 or something, where we did a bunch of changes. And Ben Bressler wrote me and said, "Hey, Brad, I hear you're in China scouting, and I want you to know that not having WWF just secured like their number one partnership. So we are the number one travel partner for WWF now. And in order to commemorate this, Ben said, Brad, is there any way you can get some really cool panda pictures? Because we want one on the cover of the catalog. So I'm very proud of this. And so, yes, I spent several days, took as many pictures of pandas as can be imagined, and finally got one that our amazing art director, Mark Hickey, liked, and made it to that. So anyway, so here we are. This is China, and it's about the same size as the lower 48. So that's something that people don't really realize. I mean, a lot of times people hear about these Asian countries that, they're small and things. China's not. China's a vast place, and you could spend your entire life exploring China. But we're gonna basically focus in on Shanxi province and Sichuan province, which I believe are the coolest. So we start out our trip. We meet in Xi'an, and definitely I would say the highlight is the terracotta warriors. It's from Emperor Qin Shi Huang 2,200 years ago. Basically, what he was doing was securing an army to protect him in the afterlife. And he built these terracotta warriors. And so, and this has to be on the bucket list of almost anybody historically. You know. And every single one of these warriors is totally unique and different, their faces. So it's, as far as an art standpoint goes, really can't be beat. So we start out there, go ahead and tick off an incredible highlight in the terracotta warriors. And Xi'an, back in those days, all the cities, because China was a feudalistic place, a very violent, lawless, warlike place. All of the towns that needed to be protected were surrounded by an ancient city wall. So we will definitely see that ancient city wall. And then I think the highlight really is to go out and do some night photography and see all these beautiful structures and buildings, like the bell tower and the drum tower, that were set up to call people back into the city gates after dark, which was, a dangerous time. And I think that symbolically the coolest part about starting in Xi'an is that Xi'an was the beginning of the Silk Road. And the Silk Road really is something that even in today's trade routes within modern China, lasts. But historically, it's incredible. And you can see the Muslim traits from the people. And that shows this cultural trade route, like a 2,000-mile trade route in between Europe and China, which was historically so important to everybody, to us. So we will try to photograph and get the essence of this ancient, trade. And you can see the facial features. I mean, they're not fully Chinese. They are, sort of Central European, somewhat, Turkish in some of their physical features. And then from Xi'an, we travel by bullet train into Sichuan province, which really is where my favorite part of the trip starts. We'll say that. So if you can see on this map, Xi'an is where we begin, and that's where the terracotta warriors are. And then we travel by bullet train, which used to be like a 13 or 14-hour train bus trip over, like backbreaking bus trip over the mountain country, deep into Sichuan province. But now with the bullet train, it's just totally revolutionized travel in China. So this bullet train, which goes from Chengdu to Xi'an, takes about 3 to 4 hours because it goes around 150 miles an hour, and it just goes basically a tunnel underneath all of the mountain ranges. We will only do half this portion up into Guanyuan, which is a town at the sort of in the beginning of the Sichuan Basin. But I'll tell you, China is a place where you can really enjoy seeing the the ancient culture juxtaposed to the modern, like in somewhat super modern. So we don't have bullet trains in the United States because for some reason we just can't seem to get it done. But in China they do, and bullet trains are huge now, and it's absolutely revolutionized travel. So I think it's an incredibly cool experience to just hop on one of these bullet trains and then just go whisk off across the countryside underneath mountain ranges in the quiet comfort and super smooth of a bullet train. And I think that's really where people are like, wow, China is something else. Like China's far ahead of most countries. And they just decide to do a bullet train and go underneath mountains and tunnel underneath mountains and things like that, and they just do it. And then we get into the Sichuan province, which is often termed the kingdom of heaven because it's like a natural greenhouse. It's surrounded by huge, beautiful high mountains, which collect lots of precipitation. So you got lots of water that drains into this basin. But the basin itself is subtropical, so it's kind of like a greenhouse. And so you can see Chengdu there in the basin, but you see all the mountains that people don't realize. All that, some of the most incredible mountain scenery on Earth surrounding the Sichuan Basin. And in the basin itself, of course, being a natural greenhouse, it does grow some incredible vegetables. And that lends itself to being one of the culinary destinations of the world, is the Sichuan Basin. And we'll certainly enjoy that. Like, I think my favorite example is there are 200 species of edible mushrooms in Sichuan. I mean, I don't know how many we have, probably, 20 at the most that, we can consider something that we normally eat. But Sichuan has 200. The flowers, I mean, the people of Sichuan over the thousands of years have truly mastered the art of gardening to the point where it's just amazing just to be in these gardens, in these farmlands, and see what they've done. And I'm a huge fan because I grew up in North Carolina, like of azaleas and rhododendrons, and there are like 30 species of native rhododendrons in Sichuan. And then if you look into the eyes of the elders, you can just feel the character that they have. And so they've been through a tumultuous history, to say the least. Um, and I just have so much respect for it. So, China and Japan, I'm sorry, China and the United States have not always gotten along for sure. And they're continuing to not sometimes get along. But United States and China for sure are cultures to be respected and to learn about them and to appreciate them. And that's a lot of what we do in this trip, is to just learn about this other side, not the side of China that you see on the news, but to see this beautiful ancient culture that has just succeeded in so many ways. And just to learn about it, just to be humble and learn about Chinese. Amazing for photography, because they still have a lot of these old ancient towns. And so you just see so much of the character. The thing about being in China is when you're in the cities, it feels like you've gone into the future. But as soon as you leave the city limits, it's like you've gone back a couple of hundred years in time. These are all things that we'll talk about. Such as the one of the first villages that we go to is part of the old Silk Road. The original sort of the subshoot of the Silk Road goes from Chengdu, where the silk was made, into Xi'an, where it was distributed out across Central Europe. So that part of the Silk Road, which goes from Chengdu to Xi'an, we'll see. And so you get to see some of these ancient relics of the Muslim culture. And then it's the beautiful gardenings. This is an ancient village that we go to. It's one of my favorite places, a Xinshi village. And the locals now are, this is a place that foreigners never go to, but the locals have gotten used to us going, and they super appreciate it, and we are so friendly, and everybody's friendly, and we just get to see this ancient side of the world that the Western world just never sees. So it's an amazing time. I mean, right now, you're going on a bullet train, which seems like you've gone into the future, just flying underneath the mountain ranges at 200 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden you're just in this ancient village, and that's the magic of China, because China really does has done an incredible job at maintaining that old culture, such as this Shinchi village. It just like Xi'an has its own version, ancient version of a 2,000-year-old city wall, because back in those days, you needed to get back in that wall where it was protected because it was a very tumultuous place. And just to see these generations of people, to see people, these old timers that have seen me come into that village as like the only Westerner to ever go there back in like say 2012, 13, and then to still be bringing groups of smiling foreigners. It's just a really heartwarming feeling. So, any of the tensions that you might think about when you think about going to China, they're just melted away because the people are the friendliest people in the world. Beautiful ancient structures, and we just have a blast, basically. But then we got to get into the wildlife part. So, in 2013, it was right after the whatever the was kind of as after rebuilding after the huge earthquake of 2008. There was a stimulus package that sort of helped build some of the infrastructure of places in this earthquake stricken areas, and one of which was Tenjaho National or Nature Reserve, which absolutely fell in love with, and to this day, of all the places I go in the world, it really is one of my favorite places on earth. And I remember exploring it with the local rangers and seeing the just the potential to show our foreigners, our visitors and stuff, some of these incredible wildlife species and beautiful landscapes that people never really knew existed, and really get into giant panda habitat. Now, to see the giant panda in the wild, I'll say, is almost impossible because the pandas are shy, they're reclusive, and they live in these super thick bamboo understory thickets. So if they hear you coming, they generally go away. So although I've tried a lot, we've had a few sightings on our trips, but you can't. It's not something that can be expected. But because the panda was such a high priority species, an umbrella species that was chosen to be charismatic enough to conserve, all of the animals underneath in that ecosystem uh, will remain. So some of the real key factors or key characters that we will see that make our trip super special are it's the Szechuan slash golden takin. They're two subspecies, but they're the same species. This beautiful member of the subfamily Caprinae. So it's almost like a huge muscular golden mountain goat, incredibly burly, very very muscular, and just amazing animals. And so this is the national animal of Bhutan, but I'll tell you, the ones that we have where we go are much more beautiful than the black and white ones in Bhutan. These are like golden. So really, is one of our highlights is to watch these Szechuan takin. And Reeves muntjac is another one of these very rare species, as the serow, the wild boar, um, goral, and Tibetan macaque. This is a very similar species as is the golden monkey. I'm sorry, not that golden monkey. As the snow monkey in Japan. So it's just kind of this high alpine mountain monkey that's big, burly, muscular, and really shaggy, incredibly charismatic. And so we always have a really good time getting to view these. Tibetan macaque is what they're known as. So to see these mountain primates is so special. Just, Gotta look at the time. Okay, because I need to make sure there's enough questions at the end. Then the other thing that's incredibly cool is that we get to see these Asiatic black bear or moon bear, and I think we've probably had about 15 sightings on our trips. And what's happened really is that the habitat for the moon bear is exceptionally rich. So it's but the problem was is that moon bears were really afraid of people. But now they're kind of, because of this park is so well protected from wildlife. Now I'll have to say that if you're an endangered species in China, you're going to be more well protected than probably any animal in the world. I mean, the Chinese government, when they decide to protect a species, they protect it. So that has totally separate issue to, say, some of the black market, wildlife trade and stuff. These are residents of China, in that are abiding by the laws of China, and they do preserve their wildlife. And so we've done really well. In fact, this last spring we pulled into the park, and within 15 minutes of us being in that Tinjaho Nature Reserve, we were staring at and photographing beautiful wild moon bear and a cub. And then because it's a super diverse forest, especially at night, we have a chance to see all kinds of different kinds of cool critters like the hog badger, different civets, the couple civet species, leopard cat at the bottom right, and then the yellow-throated martin, which is, I think, my favorite. And bird-wise, it's one of the most diverse bird regions on Earth, and this is the golden pheasant, which is just fantastic. It's so beautiful. So we often do pretty well seeing these golden pheasants. So we have a hoopoe over in the top right, the great tit over the bottom right, brown dippers feeding on fish, and the red-billed blue magpie, fantastic, stunning bird with a gorgeous red bill, beautiful long tail, almost like a bird of paradise. And then this is a red-billed leothric. Actually a pretty common, but if you can spend some time photographing these red-billed leothrics, they are absolutely stunning. Beautiful water features, gorgeous rivers, pristine, clear, beautiful waterfalls. Just kind of reminds me of the Appalachians, but just much more diverse. With a beautiful rhododendron forest, bamboo understory. This is great panda habitat. And then as an indicator species, it's amazing to look into the water. And China, for sure, just like any developing country, one of the first creatures to go away are the fish that are easily caught for food. But this place has been so well protected that you can actually sit and watch these myriad of species in these clear crystal mountain streams. This is the red birch. So a lot of just really unique species that are beautiful to photograph. And then the ginkgo. So you guys heading on this trip is going to be in the fall. I absolutely, of course, I love China in the spring, but I definitely love it in the fall. And the ginkgo trees begin to turn yellow, which is phenomenal. And ginkgo is basically a fossil of a tree that dates so far back. And yeah, so they turn beautiful yellow, and this is where ginkgos originated native wise. Different maples, different fall colors are just fantastic. And so yeah, so a lot of people say like, hey Brad, when's the best time to go to China? And I say, well, you have to answer one question for me. What do you like better, fall colors or flowers? I mean, everybody's like, well, they're both amazing. And so yeah, if you go into China in the spring, it's incredible for flowers. And I'm not gonna, because this is a fall trip, I'm not gonna show all these amazing flower pictures, but like the red buds are probably the key species that you would see. But in the fall, just beautiful fall colors. This gorgeous deciduous forest. And then in the interim, as we travel around back and forth, we go to these really amazing villages where it's just like people are living on a small plot of land that the government has given them as a lease, and then they utilize it to the fullest extent. So they're just growing rice. There's just like a myriad of things that they do. So they have fish ponds, they have rice paddies, different fruiting trees, all kinds of vegetables. They just make use of every single um, milliacre of their property, which I think is incredible. And the people are just so friendly, and they just have this wisdom of the land. So this is the side of China that we don't think about. So our next wildlife destination after Tinjaho is a golden monkey reserve high in the mountains, and this is definitely, I have to say, most commonly is the highlight of the entire trip, or seeing these golden monkeys. This is a monkey that has a huge long tail because they jump. They're jumpers. Beautiful features and incredibly cool social aspects. They have like a small family group. It's like a small mini harem group. So there'd be a big male with like 3 wives, and then all the offspring. But then they share. They have many, many, many harems in a troop. So the social dynamics are just something that I can't even explain in a webinar. But it is fantastic. I'm not going to show too many pictures to show you, to get you too excited until we get there, because you never know what'll happen. But all I can say is that this is definitely one of the highlights of the entire trip. It used to be pandas, now it's really the golden monkeys. And if you've seen Born in China, it's a great chance on Disney, a great chance for you to get a kind of a guess why these monkeys are so amazing to see. This was a picture that was very, very similar to the BBC Wildlife of the Year award in 2019. So from the Golden Monkey Reserve, we head down further into the basin. We actually cross the Sichuan Basin, and we come out on the other side and start hitting our panda bases. So Dujian Panda Base is there's the Chinese government has several sort of facets of giant panda research, and really it's one of the most incredible conservation stories on Earth, is saving the giant panda from extinction. So it's something that we'll talk about at great lengths on the trip. Is an animal that was so vulnerable and so close to extinction, but has been brought back through billions of dollars and careful, meticulous work. That now they're even beginning to take old farmland and rewild it into giant panda habitat, and then begin to release these giant pandas back into the habitat. So when the Chinese are serious about conservation, they get it done. And there's no better example of any humans on Earth um, working towards a conservation goal like the Chinese have with the giant panda. Now, the last time I did this webinar, I was saying that, well, the Chinese government are basically, because of the geopolitical tensions, they were taking back all the pandas, and you weren't allowed to see them anymore. But luckily, those kind of tensions have eased, and now the giant pandas are beginning to return back into the zoos, which is really good for China and United States getting along. So we have a chance of seeing some of the very famous pandas from the United States, which China always owns the pandas, but then they have to get returned back to China. So yeah, I mean, it's just once and this is kind of the job of your expedition leader, is to make you appreciate. Are we just seeing pandas in a zoo? Well, yeah, they're in captivity, but once you learn all that's gone into saving the giant panda from extinction, you have this greater appreciation for the pandas, and to be able to see so many in one place, like mom and cubs, big males, subadults all together interacting. It's just fantastic. I mean, it's basically panda paradise. And we also see another very charismatic animal, the red panda, which are also reside in these reserves. Red panda is in its own family called the Luridae. So it's actually not super related to the giant panda, even though a lot of the characteristics are similar. Then we head into the mountains and go to a very famous base called Wolong, which originally was the place for pandas, but then it got destroyed in the 2008 earthquake. But it was rebuilt, and now it's a fantastic place to go. and really still is very much off the beaten path. Even though for us, instead of it being a 15-hour bus ride to get there, now it's just a 1.5 hour trip because there's so many tunnels underneath the mountains. It's still kind of off the map, and fantastic place to really get the incredibly iconic, gorgeous images of pandas with beautiful backdrops, such as fall colors or spring flowers or mountains, especially when the panda cubs climb up in the trees. It's just fantastic. These are images that you just cannot get in the United States Zoo. Then we head further into the mountains to some of the most incredible, awesome mountain scenery I've ever seen in my life. These are 20,000-foot mountain peaks. So we crest into the Tibetan Plateau, where we can see Himalayan griffins, lammergeiers, different bird species. I mean, a totally different planet, and also a culturally different planet. And then over on the other side, there's a beautiful national park called Four Sisters Mountain, which has amazing fall colors. So the larches or tamarack turn orange, and some of the other ones also turn orange too. And then you just get these beautiful. I mean, look, this is a gorgeous example of a larch that's turned golden with some snow capped or like a little bit of fresh snow in the mountains. And then we spend a day exploring this beautiful mountain place. Geologically, it's really cool because this is a place that's been racked by earthquakes over the generations. And so sometimes when an earthquake happens, it will basically put a landslide underneath, like over on top of a watershed. So the water just basically, bubbles up over, and it creates these beautiful rapids that are behind these gorgeous mirror-like lakes. It's just, I mean, for photography, landscape photography, it's just absolutely off the charts. And then the Tibetan culture is right there. So, I mean, just like you've gone in, even though because of the tunnels, it's easy to get to this area now. It's just like you've gone into another planet. So we will go up to around, we will sleep at 10,000 feet, and we will actually go up to almost 11. But altitude sickness really isn't a problem because we're only up there for a couple nights, and then we always travel higher during the day than we do spend the night. And we just take care of our folks. Everybody seems to have a good time. We just take it easy and then just get immersed in this beautiful mountain country. It's Tibetan Buddhist landscape with the prayer flags and the stupas. And then that's Four Sisters Mountain in the back, which is over 20,000 feet. Yeah, so Rocky Mountain High, but to a different degree here. Prayer flags. Yeah, and it really kind of gets into your soul to be up at in this country here. Some of the most impressive mountain scenery I've ever seen in my life. Beautiful mirror lakes. Then we head back down for another shot at giant pandas and also red pandas to kind of round everything out. And just on our way back, there's a lot of places we can stop. Okay, so now we're just getting down, like to the know before you go sort of stuff. What's the weather going to be like? Well, you're dealing with you're going to be down in a subtropical basin sometimes, which is about 800 feet, but you're going to be going up to 10 or 11,000 feet. So you have to prepare for all sorts of weather. The coldest will be at Four Sisters Mountain, say early in the morning, and you could easily have temperatures in the 20s and some snow. But as soon as the sun comes out, usually just get absolutely just warms right up. And the only thing that I really worry about with people is sunburn because of that high altitude. Your sun exposure is is pretty serious. But otherwise, you just got to be prepared for any kind of weather. Like I can't tell you it's going to rain or it's not going to rain. If it's going to be sunny or not sunny, it may be 75 degrees, but then we drive up, 8,000 feet and then it's cold. So just be prepared. You don't need like extreme cold weather stuff, but you need just to have lots of layers. And then we're not going to be, out in severe weather for like extended periods. Traffic is something that in China is certainly a elephant in the room. But because we're going to be mostly up in these kind of high mountain areas, off the beaten path, most of the Chinese tend to stick to the cities. We will potentially deal with some pretty heavy traffic in Xi'an for sure. So don't let that surprise you when you get there. But other than that, it's mostly just mountain roads, and the only thing to kind of worry about maybe is like make sure that you bring some motion sickness pills because we are going to be driving on lots of mountain roads. And then restrooms. um, we try our best to accommodate everyone with restrooms. So I think you guys all know is that the Chinese, they basically have Asian toilets, which a person would need to squat over. Now, if that was kind of a deal breaker for a lot of travelers that just didn't want to do that, or maybe they have bad knees or whatever. But we have come up with some pretty clever ways to get around that, such as Western toilet stands. So don't let squatting in an Asian toilet limitations stop you from going on this trip. And this is kind of just a funny sign. It's just something that just do not piss. These are because these are composting toilets. But anyway, yeah. So don't let the restroom situation. We're natural habitat. So if you have a limitation like that, we generally find a way around it. Okay, so I'm kind of finishing up here. Water. All I can say is that as soon as you guys get there, please do not drink the tap water. Um, that's all I can say. It's fine. It's okay to like shower with, bathe with, but as far as like brushing your teeth, and we're just going to try to keep on the safe side. And because we are natural habitat, we make sure that we don't use lots of single-use plastic containers of water. So we go to every length that's possible by using these kind of refillable mineral water containers that we use. I mean, everything from we have hand pumps and things like that, or electric dispensers. We just try to keep you guys hydrated with good, safe water. But just don't, when you show up at the hotel, don't, we will have, we actually have, we give you like big containers of drinkable water when you get there. But just so you know before you go. Internet is kind of tricky, but there's kind of a way around it. As far this also changes all the time, but pretty much yes, there is something called the Chinese firewall, which blocks almost every website that humans that Americans or Australians or Brits find useful. um, but somehow, if you have an international plan on your phone that has internet, it will basically, as far as when I was there last, it will bypass the firewall. So on your phone, you will be able to check all your Hotmail, all your Facebook, all that stuff. But if you try to log into the Wi-Fi at the hotels, you're going to be disappointed. It's difficult. You'll be able to just get a handful of sites. And originally VPNs were kind of the thing to do, but the Chinese government doesn't like VPNs, so they really come down hard on them. So I can't from one day to the next tell you that a VPN is going to work or not. But what I will tell you is that your international card on your phone that allows you to get data will be fine. So that's what you should rely on. Money has also become tricky. Most places do still honor cash, but they're trying to get to more of a cashless society. And if you want to stay ahead of that, the best thing to do is to look into getting like Alipay. And once you get on Alipay, it's just like any kind of bank website. You link it to your card and all this kind of stuff. It's easier to do it before you go than when you're there, and that will allow you sort of, you can use a QR code to buy things as much as you want. But At the big hotels, normal credit cards work, but as soon as you get off into the little shops and things and restaurants, if you guys go off on your own at some point, it's going to be frustrating. And cash will work in some places, but others not. So Alipay really is a great way to do it. But always remember, if you're with us, we will. I mean, like I have Alipay, I will easily just pay for whatever you want, and then you can pay me back later. I'll take any currency. Doesn't matter. I'm just trying to keep it simple for you guys. But yeah, China's a complicated place. Electricity. Um, so if you have any rechargeable devices, like a lithium battery charging thing, well, first of all, don't put those in your checked luggage, because there are scanners at the Chinese airports, and just they will pull them out, things like that. So keep all those things in your checked luggage, and that's okay. Um, but then what you should definitely avoid, and I want to let you know this is very important. If you have something as a direct plug-in, such as a hair dryer or a shaver that you just plug directly into the wall, as soon as you get to your hotel, do not plug that in, because it will blow the circuit, and it would be bad. It'll probably destroy your device. So if it's a rechargeable um, shaver or something like that, no problem. You can get a voltage adapter if you're going to if you have a CPAP machine. Yeah, you're going to need to get an adapter, like a voltage adapter for that, because it's a direct plug-in. It's a different voltage. I hope that makes sense. And always remember, all this stuff is going to be well covered in your pre-departure briefing. And then your concierge person will also be able to help you answer all these kind of questions. Laundry is something that we will strategically tell you. There's a few places where we will go for a few nights, and we'll say, guys, give us your laundry. We will go to take it to like a local laundromat, and we'll do that, and it will be very inexpensive. If you do show up, say at the hotel in Xi'an, and you have a bunch of laundry right off the bat, and you want them to do it for you, it's going to be excessively expensive. So just keep us in mind, because we've already dealt with all these kind of problems, and we just want to make it simple, easy, and cheap for you guys. We don't want we do not like tacking on hidden costs and hidden headaches and things like that. So that's our job, is to help you fix that, things like that. And then valuables, yeah, everywhere we stay, we will have a lockbox. And so, but I think that, as soon as you get there, I think that just the thing to avoid, the times where I've seen people run into problems would be, say, they have a money belt with everything that's super important in this money belt. And then they, have it hanging around their neck. And then they go to the bathroom and they leave it on, behind the door of the bathroom or something like that. So, but in general, we've never had any problems with things getting stolen in the hotel. Like, that's just not something that Chinese do, especially at the nicer places that we stay. Okay, well, I think that's it, and I'm going to try to leave some time. I hope you guys are still there.
All right. Thank you, Brad. We are still here.
Good.
So, before we start in with the question and answer session, I'd like to remind everyone that you can submit your questions via the question field in your GoToWebinar control panel. And if you're interested in traveling to China with NatHab, you can visit our website at nathab.com for trip details, or call us at 800-543-8917 to speak with an adventure specialist. All right. So let's jump into some questions right away. So, Brett, can you talk about the difference between the regular trip and the photography trip?
Yeah, so I think that our photography trip is going to change next year. Our itinerary is going to change, but I'm going to save that for the office people to explain. But in general, a photography trip is going to have people that are willing or more willing to um, listen to, say, the guide explain photography techniques. I think that's the main thing. That I'm going to be talking about different ISOs and different ways, and maybe doing some presentations on post editing, things like that. So yeah, it's just more photography focused trip in general.
Great, thank you for that. So let's talk about pandas for a second. What is the lifespan of a panda?
I mean, it's going to be somewhere in their 20s, maybe up into as old as 30, but like for most bears, it's generally in their 20s is the lifespan.
Gotcha, thank you. How much time are we gonna spend with the giant pandas?
We yeah, so we visit several different panda bases, and so we get pretty much immersed upon the panda visits. So you'll have just lots and lots of opportunities to see baby pandas, adult pandas, playing pandas, mom and cubs, even especially the cubs that are in Wolong, especially I think is my favorite place for photography. So in Dujian. So yeah, so there's going to be, if you like pandas, this is definitely a good trip.
Are we more likely to see panda cubs in the fall or the spring?
Both are the same. I think it's similar, just different ages. But you know, as the pandas get a little bit older in the fall, they might be more out and about in their enclosures and stuff. But yeah, so it just yeah, we see panda cubs both times.
Great, thank you. Can you talk about what the difference in weather would be between the fall trip and the spring trip?
There's I would say maybe the fall trips might tend to be possibly a bit rainier. Of course, it's hard to like make a stereotype on that, but it's definitely not like a rainy trip. Um, I think it's pretty similar because you know when you get up into the high mountains, it's going to be cool at night, and but generally during the spring and the fall trips, both are you know the daytime temperatures are usually super pleasant where we go, with the exception of like some cool cold nights, you know, in the early mornings and things like that. But yeah, it's pretty similar. Pretty similar. I think that there's a little bit more precip in the fall.
Great, thank you. So, how many people are on the trip with us, and how long does the trip last?
Yeah, so the trip is just about like just a little under 2 weeks. So yeah, it's a really good chance to kind of just get immersed in the culture, and I think it's not an overly long trip, but it's enough to where if you go all the way to China, it's gonna definitely be worth it.
What if we get there, say, a day or two ahead of time? When are we going to meet up with the NatHab staff or our guide at the hotel?
Yeah, we'll tell you. We'll tell you. We'll give you a meeting time for our first time. But I mean, we're gonna, you know, you'll be meted and greeted at the airport, and you will be immediately put in contact with us. So like for myself, like you'll be able to text message me if you have any questions. I will have already met you. So if you do show up early, we'll try to give you tips on places to go and things to do. So and I definitely recommend showing up a day or two early, just to get over the time zone change and things like that. So it's not a bad deal, and we'll make sure that you have you know something to keep you occupied and busy.
Are we going to need any special permits or vaccines to come on the trip?
No, not really. To be honest, COVID was brutal in China, but then they just overnight just said, "Oh, never mind," and so nobody talks about it. You can't even really hardly get any tests anymore. So it's just the same as with our NatHab trips. It's just like, you know, COVID is a sickness. It can be bad just like the flu can, but we just have to deal with it just like we would anything else. So there really is there's no, it used to be a lot of stress and headache to get in and out of China, but now there's basically none. There's nothing to worry about.
Are we going to have to be concerned about air quality?
Only in Xi'an. I wouldn't say concerned. It just, but you know, when air quality is bad, usually it's just you know it takes a few days and you might kind of get a little bit you feel like you're a little congested or something like that, but we're not going to be there long enough for that really to happen. So yes, I'm going to say the air quality in Xi'an sometimes is fine, sometimes it's not great, but we won't be there long enough to really notice a big difference. So I wouldn't worry about that too much.
So in Xi'an, or as we're traveling around, are we going to have the opportunity to see local artisans and see local crafts and help support the local economies?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, these are just, I mean, when I do my overall trip, these are the places that we go, but then there's all the time in between where we just kind of make certain stops, different places, and we have very keep a very flexible itinerary to try to so that one of our any of our travelers, they say, hey, I'd like to see this. And so we try to accommodate all those things. And so yes, definitely, art and things like that are definitely something that we try to hit for sure.
So are we going to be doing a lot of walking on the trip? Should I bring walking sticks, for instance?
I think that yeah, if you're concerned about bringing walking sticks, I think that they don't hurt. I think that the the duration of the walking isn't so bad, but there's going to be some places where we have options. Basically, like in Tinjaho, I'll say, guys, let's go. Half of the group, anybody that wants to, we can go up this steep hill, steep mountain, and look for this, and the other people will go on this other easier, alternative thing. So nobody's ever forced to do a difficult walk, but they have the option to do it if they want. But yeah, I think that people that like walking sticks, just to make sure that they have their balance and stuff. I think the challenging thing about China is there's just lots of stairs and steps and things that the Chinese people are generally just adapted to, and so a lot of say Westerners aren't so much. But this is not a super rigorous trip, but if people are wanting to do some rigorous hikes, we certainly do accommodate that.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about camera and camera equipment for a little bit. Do you have a recommendation for what kind of camera we should be bringing?
As far as the camera goes, I mean, I just say that the one that I use, I have a Sony A1. It's fantastic in every respect. As far as the lens goes, a 100 to 400 is probably your best lens to have. You can zoom out, zoom into some of the wildlife and stuff. Um, Personally, if you looked at my pictures and things, I mean, I shoot with a 200 to 600, and I'm very very pleased with that kind of range. Um, I don't. We rarely have people that have a huge lens and that needs a tripod, but if you do, that's okay. You can definitely bring that. So yeah, we're definitely photographer friendly. But I think a 100 to 400, 200 to 600, something like that. Maybe a wider angle for some of the landscape stuff and some of the people photography would be good.
Is a tripod something I should consider bringing?
I think that a tripod is something that like for me personally, I bring a tripod. Although we do provide tripods for the cases of say like if you wanted to do some of the slow exposure waterfall photography and you needed a tripod for that, which you certainly would. We try to make sure that we give you guys those. As far as just the general stuff, I shoot with the 200 to 600 Sony. I don't need a tripod, for the wildlife stuff. I kind of find it a bit of a hindrance. But if you are a person that shoots with a big lens and you're used to like a gimbal and that kind of stuff, you probably should bring your own. But just for like the simple stuff where you want to do a slow exposure waterfall picture, something like that, and you need a tripod to stabilize it, like we provide those.
Should I bring a laptop or some maybe backup SD cards with me?
Yeah, I would definitely say SD cards are cheap. I mean, as far as I go, yeah, I usually back up my pictures a couple times during the trip, put them on an external hard drive. So I would use my computer for that. And yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea. You know, yes, I think so.
Do you have any recommendations for binoculars? Is that something I should bring? And do you know of anyone that would be particularly good for travel like this?
You know, binoculars is a big thing. It's hard to say. I use a pretty high end pair of binoculars just in my work. Um, I go I like a 10 by 42. I go everywhere with my binoculars. To me, they're like an appendage almost. Um, so I definitely recommend bringing some binoculars. Yeah.
Are we going to have the opportunity for night sky viewing as well for those of us who love to see the stars in a different place?
Yeah, I think that when we get up into Four Sisters Mountain, if it's clear, that would be a place where we don't have, you know, because the Sichuan Basin, a lot of those areas, I mean, they have some like haze just because it's a humid subtropical basin, and so that wouldn't be great for that. And then, but yeah, like when we get up into the, you know, the areas that are in 10,000 feet, yes, you definitely, I can picture some places where some night photography might be pretty cool.
So, is there a minimum age or any other restrictions about joining this trip we should be aware of?
I'm not exactly sure of NatHab's minimum age policy. I think that, you know, is kind of, I think that's a bit flexible. I think that you can get around it if you can tell your salesperson or concierge person, um, say the experience of the and the attention span of the traveler. So I think that is just basically something that can be done on a case by case basis. But I love traveling with kids. I love exposing kids to certain places, but I also know that that can cause problems with the rest of the group. Just depends on the child. But if I have a kid on a group, I'm going to do my best to make sure that they are engaged and enjoy.
Are there any particular extensions within China that you recommend or that NatHab offers?
Yes, there's the Beijing extension upon upon leaving. So that's a, you know, to see Beijing is an incredibly cool place, and you get to see the Summer Palace and the Great Wall. So that's a very very popular extension for sure.
Great. Thanks, Brad. Unfortunately, that's going to be the last question that we do have time for today. So, well, I'd like to hand it back to you for some closing comments.
Cool. Yeah. So obviously I love China. I love it to death. A lot of people say, Brad, of all the places that you travel, like where's your favorite? And I'm gonna have to say it'd be tough for me to say that China was not my favorite, to be honest. A lot of it has to do with just my background of it, and just building a family with a local partnership there, and then having them because we were really we went I don't know, we just really went above and beyond what any other travel company was doing, you know, and just to face any challenges that China presented in order to make an incredible trip to sort of show people the China that I wanted to share. And so I think for me in my career, it's the thing that I'm probably most proud of is this trip. So anybody that wants to come, and I know, I realize that it can be, you know, daunting to go to China. You know, you got to get your visa, and you look on the news, and this, scary that, and there's going to be your neighbors and friends that are going to say, "Oh, you can't go there." And but I would just leave that all that part up to us. And if we say it's okay to go, it's okay to go. And once you get there, you're going to be like, "Wow, this is awesome." And I think that the fact that people like you guys are willing to try that, it what we act as is like incredible ambassadors between the United States and China, and I think that's super important. So we're not thumbing our nose up at a country that we're well, I you know you saw something on the news that China's evil or something. They're not. Um, they're very very welcome to to visitors, and they love to share their place and whatever political stuff that happens between China and the United States, that has nothing to do with the residents there. The residents there are just happy to see you. And you're going to be met with incredibly warm people, and you're going to feel safe, and you're going to feel taken care of, and you're going to feel like you have traveled to a place where the average traveler doesn't go. And that's going to make you feel proud. And you're going to feel proud that you're being an ambassador to the United States. You're showing Chinese that, hey, look, we're just super cool American people that love your country, and we want to learn about it. And to me, that's like an emotionally heartwarming experience. So I just very, very much appreciate you guys that are making the leap to come to China. In the very beginning, right after COVID, it was tough to convince people to go. But you know what? Some people did go, and we had awesome trips. Everybody got home safe and sound, and they were like, "Wow, that was amazing." So yeah, just yeah, adventure travel. That's all I can say is just go for it.
Brad, thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today.
Yes,
And
sir.
I would also like to thank everyone who joined us today. So if you are interested in information on how you can travel with NatHab, give us a call at 800-543-8917, or you can send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us Monday for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out next week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude today's webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you
Bye,
next
guys.
time.
Thank you.